Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you unraveled quietly, but shattered everything. The sun was already up when I heard the water running. Not just the usual morning drizzle she takes after work. This was prolonged, almost theatrical, like she was scrubbing something off, or trying to. I hadn't slept, not even a little. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me like a slow, taunting clock. Darla was supposed to come home hours ago from her overnight shift, but the house stayed silent till just before 6. No text, no call, just the front door clicking shut like nothing had happened. She didn't even peek in the bedroom, just beelined for the shower like she was following a script. Not ours, though. I got up, not because I was curious, because I was numb. That kind of floaty, hollow numb you only feel when your gut already knows the answer but your brain's still bargaining. I walked into the kitchen, and that's when it began. First, the sink. There were 2 glasses drying in the rack. One with pink lipstick on the rim. She doesn't wear lipstick at work. She says it gets wiped off under the mask anyway. That shade? Not hers. Too bold. Then the trash. An empty wine bottle. Pinewood Estates rose. The one we used to drink on anniversaries. I hadn't bought it. I hadn't even seen it in the house in over a year. It wasn't here last night, and I sure as hell didn't drink it. The sofa cushion was slightly indented. The throw blanket folded differently, tighter, unfamiliar. There was a faint scent of cologne in the air. Masculine. Sharp. Not mine. But what broke me? It was the smallest thing. On the hallway console sat her name tag from work, clipped to a folded receipt. Room 414, Elkwood Suites. Check-in, 7:48 p.m. Checkout, 5:31 a.m. Same time frame she was at the hospital. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just stood there, holding that tiny piece of thermal paper like it was burning a hole in my skin. The water kept running. She had no idea I was awake. She had no idea I knew. And somehow, knowing made me feel smaller than I've ever felt in my life. She walked out of the bathroom like nothing was wrong. Her hair wrapped in a towel, wearing that pale blue robe I bought her last Christmas, still dripping slightly at the hem. Her skin smelled like vanilla and roses, but I could still catch a trace of something foreign beneath it. Cologne? No. Aftershave. Strong, musky. Definitely not mine. I stood in the kitchen pretending to scroll through my phone, trying to look as detached as I could manage. She glanced at me quickly, barely making eye contact, and said, "I'm so dead tired." The night shift was chaos. Then she kissed me on the cheek, soft, automatic. Her lips didn't linger. No smile. Just habit. And that was the part that gutted me. I watched her shuffle into the bedroom. I stayed behind, heart racing, hands cold. The receipt with her name tag was still burning a hole in my back pocket. I felt like I was living a fake life in real time. I was standing in our house, and everything looked normal. But I knew I was surrounded by lies. The walls had heard more truth than I had. Still, I said nothing. I spent the next hour pacing. My stomach churned. My legs wouldn't stay still. Every time I passed the bedroom door, I could hear her breathing softly, sleeping like she had nothing to hide. I kept replaying the timestamp on that receipt. Checkout at 5:31 a.m. She walked through our door at 5:48. 17 minutes. Was she rushing to make it look like she came from work? Did she stop somewhere else first? Was someone else in that hotel room right before she smiled at me? I wanted to shake her awake, ask every question screaming inside my head. But I couldn't. Because I knew that once I asked, once I heard it from her lips, I couldn't go back. It would be real, permanent, not just suspicion, not just receipts and scents and 2 glasses in the drying rack. It would be betrayal I couldn't unknow. So instead, I waited. I made coffee. I stared out the window, and I started planning something I never thought I'd have to, a way to uncover everything. Quietly, completely. Because if she could lie that easily, then I had no idea who I'd been married to all this time. She was still asleep when I slipped her phone off the nightstand. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would wake her. I knew her passcode, of course I did. After 9 years of marriage, you memorize those things like birthdays and the way she likes her tea. But unlocking her phone felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. And yet, there I was, crossing it. First, everything seemed clean. Too clean. No suspicious texts. No unsaved numbers. No weird photos or late-night calls. It looked like a perfectly filtered version of her life. But people like Darla, people who have something to hide, don't leave messes in plain sight. They bury them. So I went deeper. I opened her Maps app. Last destination? Elkwood Suites. 7:41 p.m. Not the hospital. Not the gas station near work she usually stops at for gum. No, she had driven straight to that hotel, the same one printed on the receipt I'd found earlier. No detour. No mistake. I felt dizzy. I checked her location history. She'd been there multiple times this month. Always during night shifts. My wife, who once said she hated hotel rooms because they smelled like other people's secrets, had been booking one like it was routine. Suddenly, she stirred in bed, and I panicked. Locked the phone, placed it gently back on the table, and stepped out to the hallway before she opened her eyes. I leaned against the wall, heart racing, throat dry. She came out 20 minutes later, yawning, her hair still damp. She looked like the same woman I married. The same woman who helped me through my father's funeral. The same woman who laughed at my awful cooking and cried during Pixar movies. But now she felt like an actress playing a part one used to know. I asked her, casually, "How was work?" She blinked once. "Exhausting. Some guy coded twice in ICU. I'm emotionally wrecked." Lies. Polished, professional lies. I nodded. "You should rest. I'll make lunch." She smiled faintly, kissed me again, and walked back toward the bedroom. But I wasn't making lunch. I was making copies of the receipt, the GPS screenshots, and my own timeline. Because if she was going to live a double life, I was going to expose it, piece by quiet piece. Even if it destroyed me. The hardest part about pretending nothing's wrong is acting like you're not pretending. Every word I said that day felt like chewing glass. I smiled when she laughed at some show we were watching together. I nodded when she told me she was covering another nurse's shift this coming Friday. I even reached for her hand while we were eating dinner. But inside, I was unraveling. So I made a decision. I was going to follow her. Friday came faster than I expected. I told her I was heading out of town for a meeting, something about a supply chain consult over in Deerview. She barely looked up from her phone when I told her. Just said, "Drive safe," and returned to scrolling. She didn't ask when I'd be back. Didn't ask what it was about. That silence said more than words ever could. I parked around the corner from our house that evening. Waited with the engine off, hands sweating on the steering wheel. She came out around 7:15, dressed in her navy blue scrubs, hair tied back in a neat bun. She looked every bit the professional nurse. It would have fooled anyone. But not me. She drove straight to Elkwood Suites. Didn't even hesitate at the turn. I waited 10 minutes. Then I parked down the street and walked up like I belonged there. The lobby smelled like air freshener and quiet shame. I wore a hoodie and kept my head down. At the front desk, a tired clerk was typing away. I asked casually, "Did a Darla Beckett check in?" He didn't even blink. "Room 414. My legs went numb. That number. Again. I thanked him, turned around, and walked straight out before I did something stupid. I sat in my car for over an hour, staring at the entrance. At one point, I saw someone walk past the window in that room. A tall silhouette. Not hers. He was still there. I didn't cry. Not then. My body didn't even allow it. I just sat there gripping the steering wheel so tightly I left crescent marks in my palms. When she came home the next morning, I was already back in bed. Pretending. She kissed my forehead and whispered, "Sorry if I woke you." I almost laughed, because now I was wide awake, and I'd never feel asleep again in this marriage. By the next Monday, I wasn't sleeping much. My appetite had vanished, and my thoughts moved in loops, replaying that hotel room number, his silhouette behind the curtain, her sigh when she crawled into bed next to me after being with him. And still, I said nothing. I was too scared of her answers, too paralyzed by the calmness in her lies. But I needed her to feel the cracks forming. I needed her to know that something was shifting. So I wrote her a note. I didn't sign it. I didn't ask questions. I just wrote, "Your night shifts are very productive, huh? Room 414 must be cozy. I wonder if he smells your perfume the same way I used to." I folded it neatly and slipped it into her work bag before she left that night. Then I waited. She returned around 6:45 a.m. the next day, still wearing her scrubs, face a little pale, lips pressed together tighter than usual. She didn't go straight to the shower like she always did. Instead, she walked to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, and stood there silently. I could feel the tension vibrating off her skin. She didn't look at me once, just muttered, "Long night," and disappeared into the bathroom. I waited outside the door, listening. No humming this time, no soft footsteps, just water hitting tile and silence. When she came out, her eyes were red. She tried to hide it, but I saw. Her cheeks were damp, not from steam. She walked past me quickly, said she was exhausted, and shut the bedroom door behind her like she was closing off a chapter. I didn't follow. Instead, I went to her bag again. The note was gone. She'd read it. She knew. But still nothing. No apology. No confession. No angry outburst. Just distance. Like she was preparing herself for the next move. And me? I was already 3 steps ahead. Because while she was showering, I placed a tiny recording device under the passenger seat of her car. Something cheap but effective. She'd never notice it. And next time she drove to his hotel, I wouldn't just be watching. I'd be listening. The recording wasn't clear at first. Just the sound of keys jingling, the engine starting, the usual static from a cheap mic. I listened through headphones in the garage, hunched over my laptop, palms sweating, heart thudding like a warning drum. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe silence. Maybe nothing at all. Maybe she'd finally gone to work, and this nightmare would evaporate. But 5 minutes in, the car stopped. Door opened, closed, footsteps, then his voice. Low, confident, disgustingly familiar in the way someone becomes familiar through repeated betrayal. I couldn't make out his words. But then came hers, clear, unguarded. A version of her voice I hadn't heard in years. She laughed. Soft, intimate. Not the laugh she gave me during sitcom reruns or awkward family dinners. This was the kind of laugh that had weight behind it, that said, "I want to be here." The kind I hadn't heard directed at me since before the pandemic. And then she said it. I told him the night shift was crazy. Poor thing probably believes I haven't slept. My throat tightened. That was me. I was the poor thing. I'd stayed up all night so she wouldn't have to fumble for her keys in the dark. I'd folded her laundry, made her lunch for the next day, and spent hours replaying every moment we'd ever shared like a fool digging through ashes for heat. I kept listening. They joked about me. She said I was soft. Said I'd never suspect anything because I was too sentimental for my own good. He said I sounded like the kind of guy who'd cry during cereal commercials. She didn't even correct him, just laughed harder. I pressed pause. The headphones sat in my lap like evidence in a trial I never wanted to attend. Everything in me wanted to scream, to break something, to confront her and shout until she admitted it all. But I didn't. I just sat there in the dark, eyes burning, spine curved like I'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. She didn't just cheat on me. She mocked me, and that was the part one couldn't forget. After listening to that recording, I didn't eat for a day and a half. My body moved through routines, but my mind was somewhere else entirely, like I'd been evicted from my own life. I told her I had to travel again for work, an overnight trip this time, another fake meeting. She barely reacted, just nodded, told me to text when you get there, and returned to filing her nails. That night, I parked 3 blocks away, left the car, walked home in the dark, quiet, slow. I wanted to catch her red-handed, yes, but a sick part of me also wanted her to prove me wrong. To let me walk into that house and see her in pajamas watching TV alone, just like before. I wanted her to make me feel stupid for doubting her. But I wasn't that lucky. From the moment I turned onto our street, I knew. There was another car in the driveway. A white SUV, parked slightly crooked. The same one I'd seen once outside Elkwood Suites when I followed her. I didn't know the plate number, but I remembered the cracked taillight. It was him. It had to be. I didn't barge in. I didn't even go to the front door. I circled around the back, through the alley, and entered using the spare key I kept hidden in the gutter drain. The house was quiet, too quiet. I crept down the hallway, and then I heard them. Not talking, not laughing, just the muffled sounds of movement. Sheets, breathing, a faint thud against the wall. The bedroom door was cracked just slightly, careless mistake. Through the gap I saw a silhouette. Hers, hair down, knees straddling someone who wasn't me. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I took one photo. Just one. Not for revenge. Not for friends. For me. To remind myself I wasn't crazy. That the late nights, the lies, the lipstick-stained glass in the sink, it was all real. Then I walked back out the door. But I didn't leave. I sat in the car. Waited. I wanted to see the man she chose over me. At 3:11 a.m. The door opened. He stepped out, zipped his jacket, adjusted his collar, and walked past me without a second glance. No guilt, no rush, just a man leaving a borrowed life. I snapped a photo of his face through the windshield, because tomorrow I was going to find out everything about him. I didn't sleep after he left. I just sat in my car, replaying every moment of our life together like it was someone else's movie. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the screaming, throwing things kind of way. I felt quiet, focused, like something inside me had finally settled. There's a point where pain stops trying to scream and starts making plans. By sunrise, I'd packed everything I needed. Just the essentials. My documents, clothes, my dad's old watch, and a single printed envelope I left on the dining table. The house looked the same as always. Her coffee mug still drying by the sink, a half-used candle on the counter. But to me, it felt like a crime scene, and I couldn't stay there anymore. I didn't leave her a dramatic letter. Just a copy of the hotel receipt, a photo of the two of them through the cracked door, a screenshot of the GPS history, and a short note that said, "You didn't lose me. You traded me. Hope it was worth it." I turned off my phone. I moved into a small apartment across town. It's not much, but it's mine. Quiet. Honest. A week later, I started therapy. I told my boss the truth. I told my mom the truth. And eventually, I told myself the truth too. I deserve better than a life that feels like I'm holding my breath. I never heard from her directly, but a mutual friend said she came home that morning, saw the envelope, and collapsed on the kitchen floor. I don't know what part broke her. Getting caught or finally realizing I was done. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm healing now. I've joined a hiking group. I've started journaling. I even laughed the other day, really laughed, because the waiter got my name wildly wrong and called me Doug. And for some reason, that was the funniest thing I'd heard in months. Maybe I'll find love again. Maybe not. But I'll never settle for being someone's backup plan again. What moment in this story shocked you the most? Was it the note? The recording? The hotel receipt? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned here on Reddit Confessions for more stories that hit way too close to home.